Erev Tov, everyone. The hero of our parsha is actually Pinchas. So the Gemara tells us that Pinchas is Eliyahu. There's a connection between Pinchas and between Eliyahu Hanavi. And that's part of the reason why this week's Haftorah is the Haftorah regarding Eliyahu. And also the comparison of the personalities, that Eliyahu is a Kanoi. He says, Kano Kinesi Lashem. That's my personality. And Pinchas is the classic Kanoi. So we understand the combination here, the association between Pinchas and Eliyahu. And the Meforshim dwell on it in greater detail. But I want to bring up another point, if I may here. There's another connection that the Meforshim all deal with, and it's more Kabbalistic, especially in the Sifrei Kabbalah, the association of Pinchas with Nadav and Avihu, with the two sons of Aaron who were killed, died be'akriva meish zora lifnei Hashem. They somehow overdid the service, and they were destroyed by the fire of the Ketores for their sin. Chazal always looked for deeper reasons. This reason the Torah says, so it's sufficient. That's the reason. But Chazal looked for the motivation, what brought them to be Makrivei Zorah. So there are different views. One is the fact that they never married. They never wanted to have children because they felt that would lessen their holiness in the kahuna. Another reason that's mentioned is that they thought that Moshe and Aaron were too old-fashioned to lead the Jewish people. The Lashon in the Gemara is Masa Yamusu, Skeinim Halolu. When will they already pass away, give up the leadership role? Vani ve'ator naheges ador. And then you and I, we can lead the people. We have better ideas. We're younger, stronger, more innovative, etc. So those are strange reasons that Chazal somehow built into the picture regarding Nadav and Avihu. But one of the ideas of the attachment of Pinchas to Nadav and Avihu is that Pinchas, so to speak, comes to rectify those faults that existed by Nadav and Avihu. Nadav and Avihu were supposed to be the heirs to the kahuna. They were supposed to be Nadav was the Bchor. He was supposed to be the successor to Aaron HaKohen. Elazar is the third son. Pinchas is the son of Elazar. So that Pinchas comes as the counterbalance to Nadav and Avihu. One of the things that the Gemara mentions regarding Nadav and Avihu is that Shehoru halacha lifnei Rabbam. We have a rule that a person should not take it upon oneself to decide a halachic matter if his teacher is still alive and if he has no permission from the teacher to do so. That's the whole idea of the smicha that we have today. The smicha is basically a heter hora'ah. It's not the smicha to the Sanhedrin that has been gone for centuries. So we call it a smicha, but it's not really the smicha. But it's a heter hora'ah. The Rebbe of this person has granted him permission that he can decide halachic matters on his own. He need not consult with him. And that basically is what the smicha is today. Like the Rabbanut gives smicha, they say he can decide, he doesn't have to ask the Rabbanut. Or the yeshiva gives smicha, they say he doesn't have to ask the yeshiva. He's independent, he can do it on his own. So the Gemara says that one of the problems with Nadav and Avihu is that they didn't ask Moshe. Moshe was their teacher. Moshe taught them Torah. They didn't ask Moshe whether they're allowed to bring the Torahs or not. They did it on their own. So they were Mureh Halacha B'fnei Rabbam. They decided a significant halachic matter while their Rebbe was still alive. Moshe was present. And therefore, because of that, the punishment came upon them. We find later, for instance, in Tanakh, this is not something to be taken lightly. The Chana in the Haftorah that we read on Rosh Hashanah. So our mother Chana says, Elanar Azeh Hispalolti. I prayed for this child. So the simple pshat is that she was an akara. She was a barren woman. She could not have children. And she prayed in the Mishkan and prayed silently, the whole story with Eli HaKohen. And so she prayed to have a child. But the Gemara takes it one step further. The Gemara says that Shmuel was a precocious child. And that he was raised by Eli. His mother brought him to Eli, and he lived in the Mishkan. Eli was his teacher, but it was like his father. Eli was his mentor. And the question arose in the Mishkan whether or not Shchita Kshera Bezor, whether or not the animal that's going to be sacrificed has to be slaughtered by a Kohen, or it can be slaughtered by any Jew. The Kohen's the one that has to bring the sacrifice, but the Shchita is Kshera Bezor. And Shmuel said, yeah, it's kosher. He didn't ask Eli. He didn't ask Eli. So Chana felt that there would be a decree against him. in heaven, because he was deciding a halacha in front of Eli, and he didn't ask him. So therefore she said, Elanara Zeis Paloti. I have prayed for this child, not that I prayed to have the child, but I prayed that the child be forgiven for this in order that he should become the leader of Klal Yisrael. So we see from the Gemara that they were very careful not to violate that principle. That if a person has a Rebbe and the Rebbe is around, he's accessible, the person should not decide the halacha on his own, and no matter how great a scholar he is, unless he obtains permission from the teacher, or unless he consults with the teacher. So it says by Pinchas. So again, not a part of the problem of Norav Avihu is that they didn't consult with Moshe. They took it upon themselves. So we have Pinchas. The Gemara teaches us that all of the Kohanim Gedolim that existed by Klal Yisrael were descendants of Pinchas. That nobody is from Itamar. They're all from Elazar, they're all from Pinchas. So it was, the Gemara makes a cheshbon of over 320 Talmidei Kohanim Gedolim that were descended from him. So that came because of the fact that Norav Avihu didn't want to have children, because they felt that that somehow would diminish the kahuna. So by Pinchas having that many descendants and being the father of all the Kohanim Gedolim that succeeded, we're talking about the later on through Tzadok, through Evyosar, at the time of David, the Bayis Rishon. All of that is because of the fact that Pinchas corrected that. And then we have Rashi quotes the famous Gemara that when Zimri and Cosby are appearing before the Jewish people, so Moshe and Aaron, the Sanhedrin, are powerless. They're not able to respond. It says, "Ve'hem bochim Pesach Oel." They're weeping. And Pinchas ran, and he said to Moshe, he called him Achi Aviabba. You're the brother of my grandfather. That's what he called him. Aloli Maritonu, you taught us that Aboel Aramis, then if someone that commits such a public act of Chilul Hashem is Kanoim Pogim Bo. So the Kanoim have a right to take the law in their own hands and to punish him. You taught us that. So Moshe said, the famous statement, Karaina de Igrito, Iuleve Parvanko. The one that reads the letter, he should do what the letter says. In other words, good, you're the shliach, you're the one, you do it. So he did not kill Cosby and Zimri without first asking Moshe, because he did not want to violate the principle that you couldn't be posek halacha lifnei Rabbo. So he said, Aloli Maritoni, you taught us, right? So what should I do? So Moshe told him, go ahead and do it. So he went ahead and did it. So that also is the attachment to Norav Avihu, because they did not consult and he did consult. So therefore, Pinchas, to a certain extent, comes to correct the mistakes of Nodav Avihu. They didn't have children. He had generations of Kohanim Gedolim. Pinchas does not attempt to usurp the power of Moshe or of his father Elazar. Pinchas is the one that comes to consult. So therefore, Chazal saw a connection, an association, because in the eyes of Chazal, nothing happens at random. It's not just, Mr. Pinchas came. There's a connection here. And the connection teaches us many things. And this is part of the lesson that the Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen, Eshiv es Chamosi. He quieted my anger because there was an anger from Nodav Avihu. That anger was now quieted by the behavior and the actions of Pinchas. Rabbi Chananya ben Akash Omer Ratzah HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'Zakos Yisrael V'Fichach Chir B'Lahem Torah Mitzvos Shenamar Adonai Chavei Tzman Tzidkol Yadir Torah V'Yadir.